Good morning. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday here with us. My name is Nate. I'm one of the pastors here, and we are dead in the middle of our summer series called the Summer Playlist B-Side. And yes, we are making a little bit of fun of ourselves, but it also goes with our names. Either our first name or our last name start with B, so it just made sense to go with that. Now, I love a good redemption story. And if you're a parent right now, you are in the middle of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And from there, we have one of, I think, the best redemption stories there is. And it's a whole lot of movies squeezed into this one little statement. But you have Iron Man, Tony Stark. He goes from a billionaire who sells weapons and just profits off of war to the guy at the end who gives his life up with a snap of the finger to save everybody else. And it's an incredible redemption story, but the best stories, those come from real life. And one of my favorite redemption stories, of course, comes from the football world. And I'm sorry, I know we get fed football a lot, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to tell this story. And it has to do with the Boz. The Boz was a great college linebacker. He won tons of awards for Oklahoma, but equal to his playing abilities was his ability as a showman. And as a showman, he loved to play the heel, and the heel is a wrestling term for the bad guy. And he was good at it. So much so that his NCAA career ended from him being on the sidelines from a failed steroid test and a t-shirt he wore with some bad language about the NCAA. That removed him from the NCAA and put him into the NFL. And there his showmanship did not end. And one of the greatest, really pretty much genius level stunts he ever pulled was against the Denver Broncos. And yeah. So, you want to rile up the Denver fan base? Well, you go after who? John Elway, right? So, in an interview, he talked about his boyish face and how much he wanted to basically hurt it and how he was going to take any opportunity, including getting late hit penalties, just to hurt him. Well, this did its job. It riled up that Denver fan base, and that game, 10,000 people showed up wearing an orange and blue shirt that said, "What is a Boz worth? Nothing." And it had "Ban the Boz" on the back. Later in an interview, Brian had this to say about that night. If they had looked inside the shirt at a little tag that said, "Boz 44 Inc., they would have realized they paid $15 for a shirt my company made. We gave all the profits to a children's hospital. We just wanted to prove how oxygen deprived the Denver fans were." That's genius. It really is. And oh man. Well, of course, as he goes through his NFL career, it wasn't very long. And in fact, we have a clip of the play that really, this is the only one anyone really knows about Boz's NFL career. So check this out.
If you're in Seattle, you can't wait till he leaves. 3rd and 1 from the 2. Here's Bo. And here goes Bo for the touchdown. He and Bosworth one-on-one, and Jackson just shoves him into the end zone. I suggested a handicap of 18. How about 20 pounds? That's the matchup you like to see. If you're Seattle, Bo Jackson with the ball, Brian Bosworth. Here's Bo Jackson. He's going to go here. Here's Brian Bosworth. They're going to meet on the 2-yard line and end up in the end zone. Watch the Boz. He plays it perfectly, flows to the football, meets Bo Jackson at the 2. Sorry, 220 beats 240 easily.
220 beats 240 easily. And for a man whose career was built off his size and physicality and his toughness, his meanness, 220, albeit Bo Jackson, probably one of the greatest athletes to ever live, when 220 beats 40, things aren't good for you. Things aren't good for you mentally. And in fact, the next year he gets a shoulder injury. He's out of the NFL. He tries to go into the movie business. That doesn't go very well. And his life spirals out of control for a couple decades. We all have people like that in our lives. We all have people who have faced hardships in their lives. They're not where they need to be. They've spiraled out of control, and it's people we love, people we cherish. Maybe it's our spouse, our kids, our grandkids, our neighbors that we have taken an affection to. But we all have these people in our lives, so we ask ourselves, how? How are we supposed to be a part of their redemption story? And I'm going to give you my tagline. And if you only remember one thing from this sermon, I want you to remember this, because if you can remember this, it'll help you remember other things from this day. A great redemption story starts with a nervous but willing follower. And we see that in Acts chapter 9. And I'm going to jump right in here. So, verse 1. Meanwhile, Saul was uttering threats with every breath and was eager to kill the Lord's followers. Now, these threats, they were backed up with action. Because we see before this, Saul is in fact part of the murder of Stephen, of the stoning death, the martyrdom of Stephen. So these are not just threats, they are backed up with his previous actions. So he went to the high priest. He requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any followers of the way he found there. So the way is simply what this group, the earliest group of Christians, called themselves. Well, they were not called Christians yet because Christian didn't come around until sometime later, and it was in fact a derogatory term to start. It was a put down, and Christians just accepted it and said, yeah, we'll own that. That's who we are. But right here, they are called the way. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. So why? Why does this guy want to stamp out this little group of Jesus followers, this group known for love and peace? Did he know he was the bad guy? No. In fact, he didn't. In fact, he thought he was the hero of this story because Saul was a Pharisee. In Saul's way of thinking, the only way God would send the Messiah and rescue the people of Israel is if everyone in Israel followed the Mosaic law all at once perfectly. Then the Messiah would come and rescue them. At the same time, in order to do that, little splinter cells like the followers of the way had to be stamped out for God to do his work. Verse 3, as he was approaching Damascus on this mission, a light from heaven suddenly shone down around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. And the voice replied, I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Did you catch that? I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. In Jesus, we have a Savior that's so intertwined with our life that whatever happens to us is happening to him. He really does live through us and with us, and he is a part of everything we do as his follower. Now for Saul, everything he thought, everything he believed started to unravel at this point. Everything he thought God was going to do to fulfill his promises, he is now finding out, well, it's wrong. Verse 6, now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men with Saul stood speechless, for they heard the sound of someone's voice, but saw no one. Saul picked himself up off the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him by the hand to Damascus. He remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Jesus just put Saul in a timeout. And I know that greatly oversimplifies this situation, but a timeout, when you as a parent put your kid in a timeout, you want them to think about their life's choices. You want them to think through what has happened and how they come out of this on the other side. Verse 10, now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he replied. The Lord said, go over to Straight Street to the house of Judah. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He is praying to me right now. I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming and laying hands on him so he can see again. But Lord, he exclaimed, I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem, and he is authorized by the leading priest to arrest everyone who calls on your name. God, I don't think you know what you're asking me to do. Do you really know all the facts to this, Lord? Do you know what this guy's capable of? But the Lord said, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to the people of Israel, and I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. So Ananias went and found Saul. Can you imagine the fear that Ananias has right now, the anxiety with every step he takes towards Saul, the knots that are coming up into his stomach and just tightening? Imagine the self-conversation he has. Does anyone else do that when they get stressed out? They start talking to themselves? No? All right. That's just me. You know, conversations like, why, Jesus? Why would Jesus ask me to do this? This isn't my skill set. I'm not the type of person to vocally share about him. I do that in other ways, right? Why doesn't he go get Peter to do this? That dude never shuts his mouth. We all have Peters, right? But a great redemption story starts with a nervous but willing follower. He laid his hands on him and said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus who appeared to you on the road has sent me so that you might regain your sight. Are you serious? After everything I've done, after everything I've came to do to them, and he calls me brother? Instantly, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he regained his sight. Yes, this is a physical healing, but it is also a spiritual healing. At this point, he is finally able to see love and mercy that flowed through the people that followed Jesus, and he is finally able to see the love and the mercy offered by Jesus. In this moment, Saul's transformation to Paul is beginning. Then he got up and he was baptized. So what does this mean for us? Well, a great redemption story starts with a nervous but willing follower. And truthfully, Ananias is just a regular person. Yes, that regular person is part of one of the biggest things to ever happen to this world. His act started all that we are today. But he is just a regular person. He's not an apostle. He's not a pastor. He is simply a man who is willing to move when prompted by Jesus. And I'm going to get a little personal here. And I hope this shines some light on why I believe what I believe with the church. And it starts with this. I wasn't raised in the church. I went to church a small handful of times growing up. So all this was new to me as an adult. I finally really met Jesus in my mid-20s. And through that time, I have 4 people that really stand out to me, people who filled this role of Ananias. For you teachers out there, my high school history teacher, Brian Fuller. And the effects on my life were not immediate, but as I look back on who he was and how much he loved me and how he showed me what a Jesus follower was, it changes me now. It continues to change me now. My wife, Christy, the biggest impact of anyone on my life is my wife, Christy. So patient, so loving through all of me just showing up and really just sitting here. My young adult pastor, Joe Halbert. My brother-in-law, Brad, show me that a follower of Jesus can have a lot more fire than what we see. When a willing follower sets aside their fears, lives are changed, families are changed. In fact, the effects of that change go way further than we will ever know. I don't know if Mr. Fuller knows who I am today or is seeing what I'm doing, but I look back at him and see. For those of you wanting to know what happened to the Boz, we've got another clip for you.
It didn't hit me until I went on the tour to go back and show the film in Oklahoma to a bunch of towns in Oklahoma. And on the third day, ironically, in Chickasha, Oklahoma, Kim Hayes, the pastor there, came up to me and he invited me to church. And I hadn't been to church in years. I even told her the day before, hey, we're going to go to church tomorrow. She said, say what?
So it was a first for us together after 9 years. It was really another first.
It was. And we never talked about religion. Didn't talk, the word church wasn't really mentioned in our relationship in the first 8 years of us being together. She just accepted that this was the walk I was on, and I just accepted that was the walk she was on, and we just didn't cross those paths. And I got up on that day and Sunday on March 3rd, and Kim asked me, talk to my congregation. I said, you don't really want me to talk to your congregation. But he said, no, get up there and tell it like it is. So I got up there and I told it like it is, and I spewed a little bit. And after it was all said and done, Kim came up to me before the screening of the film later that night, and he goes, you know what, I've been a pastor for 38 years, and I've never had anybody ever come into my church and speak to my people the way you did today. And I said, I'm sorry? I mean, I don't know if I offended anybody, but I was just being me. I was just being truthful. And he goes, no, you just misunderstand me. I've never been around somebody that has been so lost, but is so desperate to be found, you just don't know it.
God used an Ananias to speak into Brian's life that night. In fact, I encourage you all on YouTube. He gives his testimony. There's a video of him giving this testimony. It shares a lot more, and it's incredible. God used several Ananiases. He talks about his grandma and the example she gave. The movie producers that wouldn't take no, the movie that he was there to push, they wanted him to have the part, and he said no, but they were relentless, and he finally took it. The pastor in the clip and a group of guys, one of them who had lost his star football player's son that week in an auto accident. Because of them and because many others, Brian found Jesus that night. So, what would happen if each and every one of us took life change, took redemption stories seriously? Well, we have this right here, this light. And every time someone has a life-changing moment, the next Sunday, it comes on. Some Sundays it's on, some Sundays it's not, but it represents life change that has happened somewhere in this church or with people connected to this church. So what if we took this light seriously, and not the light itself, but what it represents? What if individually we made a priority to be a part of life change, to be a part of someone's redemption story? Do you know what would happen in our families? Do you know what happened in our workplaces, in our schools, in our community, if this became our priority? There's a basic question that people are asking, people like Saul, people like Brian, and it goes a little something like this, and it's actually another POD song. My title, Alive, was actually a POD song, but it goes, will you love me tomorrow? Despite all my feelings, these aren't the lyrics, this is what I'm adding. Despite all my feelings, despite all my failings, despite everything I've done, will you still love me? And when we individually, and when we as a church are ready to answer that question with yes, this light will be lit every week, week in and week out, and we will come ready to hear stories of life change. We will be ready to share stories of life change because they will be happening all around us. So who needs you to be Ananias? Who is God calling you to take a chance on? If a great redemption story starts with a nervous but willing follower, then Ananias, you are that follower. You, me, we're all that follower. We are Ananias. For those of you that are watching this and you are asking that question, I have to go down this road as well. For those of you that are asking that question, will you love me? The answer is yes. No matter what you have done, no matter how far you have run, you are not out of the reach of Jesus. No matter your past, no matter anything that may have come up, you are welcome here. You belong here. We will call you brother. We will call you sister. You belong. So please take this opportunity and say yes to a God that sees you. Say yes to a Jesus that accepts you just how you are right here, right now. And for those of you that are sitting in a seat, you were just like me. I occupied a seat in my church for 1 hour a week because my wife wanted me to, because someone I love wanted me to, and that is it. I know your hurdles to this Christian life. I know why you're standing there right now and you're just occupying space. I had hurdles of my own, and I will not get into any of the details, but I'm going to tell you them anyway, at least two of them. One was a puka shell necklace, and one was a stairway to nowhere. And it's not specifically those things, it's what those things represented that I saw in the church that really shut me off. Those were my roadblocks. But when I finally was able to move those aside and I stepped around those roadblocks, I found a Jesus that loved me and a people, though flawed, were willing to call me brother and accept me just how I am. Don't wait. Don't let another day go by. Get over those hurdles. Move your roadblocks. If you want to talk, I'm willing to talk. I know what you're going through. There's no question you can ask that's going to catch me by surprise. Now, I don't know all the answers. I'll tell you that right now. But I love coffee. I'd love to hang out with you. And I'm a good listener. So please, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.